We could do a little introduction of ourselves now, and.
Oh yeah, we sure could. Yeah.
You want to start?
Okay, yeah. So, hey, I'm Leslie Shannon. I'm Nokia's head of trend and innovation scouting, and I see a Nokia colleague here in the audience. So, hey. My role within Nokia is to look at advances in technology outside the world of telco so that we can understand how the networks need to be changed to make sure that we're supporting all the wonderful things like GenAI and XR. Even though, and Terry and I are both from the telco world, we're not going to be talking telco talk today. Yeah, and so rest easy.
I'm not going to talk about low latency, 5G network slicing. Don't worry.
That's another talk.
Yeah. Dominique?
Oh, hi, my name is Dominique. I'm the founder of XR Pro, and also I'm the adjunct professor at Kenyatta College. So I will be talking about how GenXR inside literature for students and learner, and I will also discuss about how GenXR affects to the creator and potentially Gen Z or young grads who seeking for offers. What's the advice? Yeah, so that's about my portion. Yeah.
So hi, I'm Terry, and I love XR. You're all supposed to say hi, Terry.
Yeah. Hi,
Terry. So I'm in charge of spatial computing, XR, Metaverse, whatever you want to call it. It's fine with me. At Deutsche Telekom, which is the parent company of T-Mobile, which is why I have what appears to be the T-Mobile logo, but it's actually officially the Deutsche Telekom logo. I've been in this is my 10th year at AWE, and been involved in the second cycle. I was doing VR in the 90s, so this is fun stuff. And the goal of our panel is to inspire and educate you on what could be and what is. And so I always like focusing on bringing tomorrow's technology into today, and doing that by showing people firsthand what you can actually do today with things that you might think might be a little bit further out. So. And you want to talk about the format today?
So we were originally going to be a panel with an actual moderator. And then, unfortunately, Amy Lemire, our moderator, the wonderful Amy, she developed pneumonia and so was not able to come. So we are the rogue panel. We are self-moderating. And so the way we decided to do this is we're going to each give a presentation, short presentation, about the area that we're focused on, and then we'll have time at the end to kind of ask each other questions, and hopefully have time to throw it open to you all as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so we each have a different focus on the topic of Gen AI plus XR, and using those letters, it's very confusing. So Gen XR is really where we're going with this.
Yeah.
So, and I believe it's noon. Yeah. We got people in the room. I think it's time to go.
We're rocking and rolling. All right. So, so imagine that all you need to be a software creator is your imagination. That's what I want you to think about, is the idea of using your personal imagination to express a goal state for a piece of software and have it created for you, or have it react to users on the fly based on their imagination. We famously know this quote from Arthur C. Clarke about any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic, and I took inspiration from that quote to create for you today what would have been a real-time experience, but will unfortunately be done as a video capture off device of a magic show done in XR using a wide range of Gen AI technologies in real time, on the fly. And almost everything you're going to see in the video is actually created in the real-time part of the experience. So very, very little pre-creation of assets, and that's really part of the big story that I'm trying to, sort of inspire you to think about.
And very little post-production as well.
Yeah, so they say in the video industry that we'll fix it in post. I'd like to say that with Gen XR we can do it in post. So that's sort of the mindset. So we have this, these eras of computing that I unfortunately can claim to have grown up with, and so lately we're in this era of big data and AI, right? That's all we talk about practically, and actually I think there's real value to understand that it's really sort of data and algorithms, and really as I look at computer science moving forward, I think that students will go to school to learn and master the most value out of will be data and data architectures and
algorithms.
Yeah, thank you, sorry. Sometimes I just get into that. I need an AI to come in, and they're, human AIs, they're great. So the focus for me has been about always augmenting the human experience using AR and XR technologies and sort of being real world first, real forward with your thinking. Some of my prior talks at AWE, I talked about from a heads down to a heads up society and sort of trying to focus on the real world experience that we're having. So I believe that we're entering this age of augmented intelligence. Now, XR, as we all know, is very expensive, and as Liam Neeson says, requires a particular set of skills in order to deploy it, to create the content for it, to test it, make sure it works across devices, to create a good experience in terms of affordance and having a great customer experience, user experience. And what we believe is that utilizing real-time Gen AI technologies, we can orchestrate this much more cost-effectively. We can transition the cost from being a CapEx expenditure to being an OpEx expenditure. So we shift the content production costs from pre-production to runtime. And there's a lot of different areas that we see our targets for specific, very narrowband Gen AI technologies. Obviously, images and 3D models, but even automating animation sequences, doing obviously voice and character generation with avatars and conversational UIs, which stack some of these together. But there's also, as we start getting more concrete about the production of XR projects that are based on Gen AI technologies, we can see asset management, content optimization, making models that are more performant or minimizing, the bandwidth required to download a video or audio stream, or optimizing for the network realities that the user's in, making things accessible, so addressing neurodiversity issues on the fly, localization, translation, multiple languages for people who have various physical and neurodiversities. This is really important, and I think something like that is where we're going to start seeing more and more services come to play. So to show this, I built a project with some colleagues from Deutsche Telekom and a great company out of Berlin called Forward Game that I've worked with on many projects. And this was to demonstrate the idea of this in real time. So it's about a 6-minute video. I'm just going to let it run.
Ladies and gentlemen, be prepared for an extraordinary performance by the great and the fantastic, the mysterious Magisto.
Hi there. I am the great Magisto, a magician of the famous traveling circus from Pandora. As a wandering magician, I must say, I'm absolutely delighted to find myself in the vibrant city of San Jose with its pleasant, sunny disposition that never fails to add a touch of magic to our circus performances. It's a joy to be so close to the Winchester Mystery House, an enchanting labyrinth that tickles the fancy as much as our tricks do. And how wonderful it is that our paths have crossed today.
By the way, I left the pauses in so you could see the reality of the technology in play.
So it's generating this on the phone.
I'm about to test my latest trick, but I will need your help and your imagination. First, tell me your name.
My name is Terry.
Interesting. Greetings, Terry. How are you feeling on this fine day?
I'm actually really excited and pleased to check out this magic trick of yours.
Ah, got it. It's wonderful to hear that you're feeling excited and pleased. Magic has a knack for turning anticipation into awe. Now, with that spark of enthusiasm, could you kindly conjure up the name of a famous historical person or celebrity that dances in your thoughts?
How about Albert Einstein?
Ah, got it.
This part.
Ah, wonderful choice indeed. Selecting the mind that has bent the very fabric of our understanding, the incomparable Albert Einstein. Now, with a little twinkle in my eye and a mischievous curl of the lip, if you could be whisked away to any place in the tapestries of time and space, where might that be? And oh, do paint me a picture as vivid as your imagination can conjure.
How about the city of Paris at night? It's raining. There's street lights and trolley cars and dark alleys and gargoyles on buildings around me.
Just being imaginative.
Aha, yeah, got it. Your imagination is brilliant. This should be just enough. And wow, the amber glow from the streetlights in rainy Paris at night must give the city a cozy yet mysterious sparkle, don't you think? Speaking of colors, amber makes me picture warm sunsets and ancient treasures. So, what's your favorite color?
Well, everybody knows my favorite color is magenta.
Interesting. Magenta evokes vibrant energy and a touch of whimsical mystery. Speaking of colorful imagination.
Some of you may remember the Unknown comic from years ago on The Gong Show. That's my inspiration for this.
Now, while the magic is cooking, let me tell you a joke. I've decided to write a book on anti-gravity. It's impossible to put down. I have a theory about space, and it's about time too.
I know, I thought about doing that, actually.
Enough with the blub 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 jokes. Now, for my real trick. Abracadabra. Hocus pocus, open sesame.
Whoa.
I hope you enjoyed the little bit of magic we've shared today. Remember, the real magic doesn't lie solely in the tricks themselves, but in the wonder and smiles they bring to our lives. Keep that sense of wonder alive wherever you go, and who knows, maybe a little bit of that magic will find its way into your everyday moments. Thank you for being a marvelous audience. When you're finished enjoying my trick, take this with you.
So that's an on-the-fly created postcard, all Gen AI.
Cool.
Terry, I love the fact that the gargoyles and trolley cars are on little pedestals.
Yeah, exactly.
Not integrated into the scene.
Yeah,
but
so there's a transportation device is one of the pedestals. So that's the project, and basically everything except for the circus tent, the splash graphic here at the end, and the character itself was created on the fly. And that, all the dialogue, all the interaction. I mean, you can think about the way you describe the environment, the person or place or famous celebrity that you pick could be anybody. And it works. Like, I've never run this project and had the same experience twice, ever, in a year. So really, to summarize my part of the presentation, I wanted to focus on the idea that GenXR will democratize the technology because it makes all of these really powerful production pipelines available. I believe that there's going to be an opportunity for these to be collated or aggregated and made more accessible, but more broadly to developers in the future. But because it can be iterative, it can be creative and fun instead of just being like heavy-duty production with lots of research and sort of production work, and then you can't change it again later because it costs too much money to do. And so this sort of rapid, iterative sort of experience can allow you to design for really fluid, replayable experiences that are even very highly attuned to the user. There's lots of ways to take this a lot further than I've done it. And even adding more media types like real-time music and video and other kinds of content. But really the bigger picture, I think, is that we're leading ourselves towards a view where software creation can be done disposably. So I could literally imagine a piece of software, have it created, experience it, and throw it away, and then create a new piece of software the next time I need something like it, but different. And so that's really the point of my part of the presentation, is to think about how software is going to change so that you, instead of knowledge engineering or prompt engineering, you're creative engineering and building projects based on your imagination. So next, we'll have Leslie.
Yes, and
go.
I will completely change course here, and I'm going to talk about generative XI. See, I knew I was going to mix up the letters.
XI.
Yeah. XR, AI, whatever. Okay, generative AI and XR in the corporate context, because there's a huge amount of value in actually working with corporate data and using XR to enable and to envision corporate data. And this is a field that we're just at the beginning of that actually has a huge amount of promise. And for you, hey, there's a few seats down here.
Yeah, there's like 4 or 5
kind of on the
seats
edges and a few seats up front. Be brave, come on, come sit down, yeah.
Join the party.
So one of the things in the corporate world that generative XR, I'm going to keep mixing up these letters. Generative XR, I did it. Generative AI has allowed is really the democratization of data. Because if you think about the way that data access has happened in the past, you've got your data scientists who actually have access to all of your data, and it's this nice big pool. And if you have a question about the business or about getting insights, you go and you ask the data scientists. And I don't mean to be coming down on the data scientists here at all, but they are not the people who are interacting with customers or who are meeting to meet business targets. Those people are not the data scientists. Yet they are the ones who tend to have the insights and the understanding of what kind of a question to ask. But honestly, how often do your salespeople hang out with your data scientists? I venture the answer is never. And so really you've got this gap, this unintentional air gap, and almost, no matter what your industry, no matter what's going on, between the people who know the questions to ask and the people who have the capability to actually ask that question of the data. So what generative AI does, that's quite obvious and clearly understood from the beginning here, is that it enables, by using natural language questioning, it enables the people on the sales force who understand the customers and the business to ask these insight questions of the data. So democratizing the access of the insights. But then there's this second part to this, and so great, that's fine, that's all in the XR world, but kind of understood. What we haven't focused on so much, or at least the generative AI world hasn't focused on so much, is how do you now then democratize the display of the results? Because if you ask a question and what comes back as a spreadsheet, it may be that that is not actually an intuitive way to read that information. And this is where XR can come in and be super, super useful. But before I come to the XR part of things, let me talk a little bit about generative AI in a corporate context, specifically from what we've experienced at Nokia so far. I just find that sharing this information tends to be useful. So first of all, not all AI is created alike. There's a strong distinction between classic machine learning that's been going on for a long time, which uses structured data. That's the stuff you've got in your database, your billing systems, whatever. Where generative AI really opens things up is it can use unstructured data, your user manuals, your marketing information. If you're really brave, your sales forecast. And there's a difference in the performance of these. So if we're dealing with machine learning, that's a machine asking questions of structured data and getting an answer back. So within the telco world, we use that for network automation. We don't need a human in that loop. It's the beginning and the end and the middle. They're all understood, and it's like, okay, this is happening, if this, then that. Go make it happen. You don't have to check with the human. But with generative AI, it's completely different. You need a human to ask the question in the first place, and then, okay, here's the information being crunched, and then you need a human to evaluate the response. And we actually really see this in the processing time it takes for each one of these processes. Machine learning happens in milliseconds. Generative AI happens in seconds. We saw actually in your video the demonstration of that seconds. Those seconds are like forever in machine time. So I find it actually quite useful. Generative AI is all about humans. It's human-generated questions in, and it's a human evaluating the response coming out. Now, where we at Nokia have actually been using XR, again, just for helpfulness, we've been doing a lot of using it for coding copilots. However, it's a firm policy within Nokia, and this is really happening because we're from Finland. We're very, very honest people. We cannot use computer-generated code in any of our IP filings or in any of our products. We have to make sure that those are Nokia-generated products, so that, say, OpenAI can't later on come and say, hey, I got a piece of your IP because you used GenAI to create some of that. No, we cannot have that risk. So yes, we can use coding in the background, but not for our actual products or IP filings. And so where we're actually getting a lot of benefit is in having a Nokia GPT using retrieval augmented generation. So we're working with OpenAI, and we fed in a lot of Nokia data, and I'll show you a little bit about that in a second. And this has given us up to 70% reduction in manual tasks. It's been a massive time saver. It's been really great. And then we have an Ask AI product, that's on the next slide. And then just content generation along the lines of what Terry was showing for giving the marketing people, faster production of things to consider for what to put up on social networks and stuff like that. Okay, so within one of the things that we've been using that's been a huge time saver for us is this Ask AI. In the past, if you had maybe a junior programmer or person who's running, doing some network, whatever the word is now, it's my turn. Network, they're managing the network. Yeah, management. Okay. And if they get a warning that is maybe a weird one and they haven't seen it before what they would do is they would post up on Discord, has anybody seen this before? What does this mean? Because looking in the user documentation, nobody does that, let's be honest. And so it might be a while before somebody comes back. Instead, now they can actually go into our Ask AI and then get the answer right away. And it's accurate because if you're only using your data in that data pool, please God, let your data be accurate, right? So you're not going to have hallucinations if it's only working on your corporate data. Okay, so this is actually something, as I said, this has reduced, it's sped up our manual time for these kind of tasks, 70%. Okay, now, all right, this is interesting. Where's the XR? Okay. This is from the city of Wellington. This is the City Council of Wellington, New Zealand, the capital of New Zealand. They are one of the most advanced users of thinking about ways of modeling data using XR that I've ever seen in the world. And in fact, they began this project back in 2011. There's a spectacular city councilor there with amazing vision. And this is an example of something they created. This was actually, this was done in VR. And what they did was they created a digital twin of the city. And then they spent 10 years, beginning in 2011, normalizing the data across all of the city council databases, across all the different departments. That is not a fast task. 10 years is actually, yeah. So within the corporate world, normalizing the data so that the generative AI can look equally within them all, that's something that has to be done. So anyway, so they did this, and again, this is all pre-generative AI. And then they were able, once they had this, the combination of the digital twin and the normalized data across all the departments, they're able to ask all kinds of questions. Like, what if we put a tram? That's an imaginary tram. What if we put a tram in the city? Will there still be enough room for bicycles and cars and stuff? And that way you can actually be, everybody's like looking at the same thing and making decisions based on that. But then even better is you can ask, and this is where it comes back to that democratization of data. You're able to ask questions to display data that you may never have considered looking at before. And so see all those red dots there? This is a vomit map of Wellington. Those are places on the street where people have barfed. and the thing is that, again, so somebody who is actually out on the streets and has seen barf, they thought to ask this question, right? So then they asked the question, and in the past, before generative AI, the data guys would go and they would code it up, and then they would display it here in the map. And this is where the display is really important, because if this were an Excel spreadsheet just listing the locations, we humans would have a very hard time seeing a pattern. But here in the map, you instantly see the pattern. And in fact, there's two areas here, this one kind of down front, and then the one kind of where the V is towards the back, where there's, what is going on there? Well, it turns out, there's a Burger King at each one of those locations. And so the city council's like, oh my God, what is happening here? And so now you won't be surprised to hear that there's a lot of bars on that street. Okay, fine. But then the city council guys, they decided, okay, we got to sort this out. We got to understand this better. So they went and they sat. I would have loved to have been there for this. They sat and they just watched people on a Saturday night try to figure out what the deal was. And it turned out that the problem was that people were drinking a lot of beer in the bars, and then they were going to use the bathroom, but the bathroom was occupied. So they were coming out of the bars looking for a toilet, and they would see the bright lights of the Burger King, and they'd walk over there, and in Wellington, all fast food restaurants, for some reason, have automatic whoosh open doors. And I think it's quite significant that Burger King is the only one of the major chains that serves onion rings. so the doors whoosh open, the smell of burgers and onion rings would come out and hit them, and they would barf right there. They had never been into the Burger King. And so what the city council discovered was that they really should rethink their zoning for establishments that serve alcohol about number of toilets per capita. So that was like this is where data can take you when you can visualize it properly. And so this is something they display in VR and that they use it as a tool within Wellington City Council. So just using XR in whatever form for that display of data in a totally understandable by anybody way, that's one of the powers of generative AI plus XR, because of course now with generative AI, you don't have to wait for your data guys to do some coding over several days to come back. You can ask these questions on the fly. And that's the vision that I have for corporate uses of generative XR, AI, and XR. Man, those letters are too close together. To do things like this. We've all seen the kind of, AR glasses where the head of operations can walk down the factory floor and look at the sensor data being displayed in AR. Well, the CFO doesn't care about things like run rates or whatever. The CFO cares about ROI and other kinds of things. So if the CFO could, on the fly, because you've got a pool of your corporate data attached to your XR, be able to, hey, just on a whim, hey, here I am as I'm walking down, show me the return on investment for each of these machines or the, whatever CFO questions are. This is going to be the superpower, the democratization of data, allowing people to, on the fly, in real time, as Terry was emphasizing, actually understand deeply the data that the corporations already hold. And so that, for me, is, on the corporate side, the holy grail of XR and generative AI coming together. All the pieces are there. It's going to take some time before we really see CFO view in AR. But, hey, as I said, only a matter of time. And so, cheap, gratuitous plug, I've got 2 books. One is on AR and VR. The other is on how Gen Z uses digital media. Available on Amazon, Audible. They're pretty good. And with that, over to Dominique.
Thank you. Yeah. Those are great books. And make sure get from Amazon and Audible. Okay. Okay, so my term, I'm going to talk about GenXR for literature. Currently, I am funded Xradi Pro and also an adjunct professor at Kenyatta. So my session will focus on more education and also for creator and also for the advice for the job or the career search. So the current problem. The American Psychological Association reported that teenage book reading dropped from 60% in the late 1970s to 30% in 2016. And today, less than 20% of US teens read daily, while over 80% use social media daily, according to the recent research. So according to the data, we know that young people or people generally read less and less, while literature is the great assets of humanity. So we want to re-implement this great legacy back to our everyday reading. Okay, so my solution for this is that if we can create an immersive environment and put the learners and students inside the literature, that would be great. And as for foreign students, if we can implement, for example, like different languages, translations, that would really help them to understand the literature because, for example, literature is the old language. And also the culture is very far away from today's modern culture. So by putting the learner and student inside the literature, students can immediately get it without really dive into the words. So this really helps them to learn better. And also, the author of the literature can serve as the virtual AI assistant to answer all the questions that the student has. So for example, I transfer the Raven written by Edgar Allan Poe, create an interactive environment, and also put Edgar Allan Poe will be your AI assistant, answer all your questions.
Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered weak and weary over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, tapping at my chamber door. Only this and nothing more. Distinctly I remember it was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow, vainly I had sought to borrow from my books surcease of sorrow, sorrow for the lost Lenore, for the rare and radiant maiden whom the angels name Lenore, nameless here forevermore.
Hi, Edgar. Who's Lenore?
Ah, Lenore. She was my beloved, now lost to death's cold embrace. Her beauty and purity were unmatched, and I mourn her deeply. The reminder of her absence haunts me, leaving me in perpetual despair.
Such a happy guy.
Lenore is the embodiment of my anguish and lost love. Is there anything else you would like to know?
That's the funny part.
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
No, you're creepy enough already.
Feel free to call me anytime.
Is he trying to pick you up there?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So,
Is your name Lenore?
yeah, so this is like the benefit for the learners to learn the literature is very intuitive and interactive. And the author, you can ask Edgar anything. Yeah, it seems like your friends, not really a distant master anymore. Okay. So as for my observation for GenXR is that it creates efficient communication and reduce travel costs. During COVID, a lot of teaching, a lot of schools happens in the VR space. That really reduced a lot of travel and also increasing the engagement compared with the 2D platform. And also for education, the most important thing for the student to learn is the instant feedback and customized content for students. So by GenXR, this really helps students to get the instant feedback and customized content. And according to Vinod's 12 predictions, if you don't know who's Vinod, he is one of the top tier Silicon Valley investors. He invests in top tier companies such as DoorDash. And those two are from his tech talk. One of his tech talk. So he predicted that expert advice and labor will be nearly free. But for us, we think that even though it's nearly free, right? For example, ChatGPT, there are a lot of like a small chat that can cover a lot of expertise. But we still need humans' input And also we need to receive output. And as for human or experts, we need to put our kind of evaluation and make sure the quality, we need to be the quality control. And also labor nearly free. When I write a blog, I need to hire an editor to help me editing all the blogs, and it costs like $45 on Fiverr. But now from ChatGPT, I just put the entire article in, and it's like within 5 seconds, it's out and it's pretty good. So expert advice and labors will be nearly free, but human will be the input and take the output and be the quality control. And as for another prediction, everyone will be entrepreneurs because GenXR really benefit the product owner. Instead of because there are two types of creators. One is creating your own product. The other one is using your time and expertise. In exchange, you work for someone else's product in exchange of money. So for that part, I would say the margin of profit will get less and less. But the other side, if you are the project owner, you will find that all the GenXR or GenAI is benefiting you because all the labors is nearly free. So be the product owner, be the entrepreneur will be the best for the creator. And the other thing that I saw, the new opportunities, is that we will build a $1 billion company with under 10 people. In one of the interviews that Sam Altman mentioned, his internal team predict there will be a $1 billion company within 10 people. And some people even predict one person, $1 billion company value. So there will be a lot of unicorn. And according to a lot of observation, XR Studio, usually the best game was created by 1 or 2 people. So you can see these types of enhancements. So a lot of a new startup will gain a lot of value with less and less people. And I highly encourage everybody to cooperate with subject matter expert to bridge the industry gap. Since GenXR will be the future of computing system, then we are the creators, we understand the technology. So helping out, for example, nursing or healthcare, education, different areas, we help them to accelerate, bridge the gap. That will be our other opportunities. So the other thing about it is that for education, for a teacher, we start teaching concepts and integrate, for example, ChatGPT inside coding. Instead of focusing on specific skills, we focus on the idea, teach concepts, problem solving, critical thinking, and systematic thinking. And everyone will be a creator and product owner. Yeah. So if you are interested in learning more about all these trends, I will have a book signing event on the lobby. So yeah, so if you go to the lobby, there's a Meet Author event. Right after this panel, I will have a book signing event or Meet the Author event. And also I am about to publish another book called Spatial AI. Feel free to, it's open for pre-order on Amazon right now. If you are interested, feel free to pre-order it. Yeah, so.
Good. So
thank you.
That's awesome.
Okay, great.
So now we had an intent to ask each other a few questions to sort of drill deeper into some of the areas that we presented. I wanted to start this off by asking you, Leslie, as an early spreadsheet guy in the 80s, actually designing spreadsheet software, I find it very fascinating how powerful visualization is. We always saw visualization in spreadsheets like graphs to be sort of an afterthought, sort of deliverable. And I'm really curious, how do you think the technologies are going to evolve to enable visualization flows inside of XR use cases where spatial visualization matters, and actually having an interactive or AI proactive conversation where it says, by the way, you may not even understand what you're looking at. Let me highlight some interesting things to take a look at.
Exactly. There's actually already some of the corporate generative XR platforms where you work with them and you put your corporate data on their platform. They understand, because usually what happens, well, in the early days of launching generative XR, generative AI, oh my God, I'm gonna die up here. Generative AI, is that when employees get access to that superpower to be able to ask any kind of question, they will ask one or two questions and then they're out of ideas. And so there's several products that I've seen that actually prompt based on patterns that the AI is seeing in the data that nobody's asking about. Or if something changes, hey, you want to check this out. So that kind of thing, plus a proactive visualization of the data. So not just a kind of a huffy kind of girlfriend vibe, well, you haven't asked me about January's sales yet. Instead of here's January sales, and by the way, focus on this. Tuesday is when it's raining, or a unique opportunity. This is the kind of stuff that I think. Thank you for bringing up the proactivity, because that's actually a big part of it on the corporate side.
So I kind of want to pivot the question a little bit differently to you. So I'm a comic book collector, and I'm also involved in a very famous comic book called Classics Illustrated, which was in the 40s through the 60s, how popular literature around the world was reimagined in sort of pre-graphic novel form, right? And it was a way to sort of introduce, get kids interested in literature.
Yeah.
And so as you do that, I'm wondering, do you see a flow of sort of automatically processing and reimagining creative writing into sort of almost pseudo movie, real-time immersive movie-like experiences?
Yeah.
And how do you see in the student-teacher interaction? How do you see that technology enablement manifesting?
Yeah, maybe there's a way for students to come up with their poem with the AI assistant, and once they say it, or they write it, or they imagine it, things well, just like your magic show, once they imagine, as long as they can imagine, things will happen. And they can create their poem, their interaction, and it's all a benefit from generative AI, because I think from brain concept to execution, the time is getting less and less. And it's also echo to your previous concept of disposable software.
Right.
So yeah, because it's so fast and it becomes disposable.
Yeah. One interesting point, one of the problems we found in developing the Magisto project was that people don't tend to express themselves very creatively.
Is that why the prompt was be creative?
Well, it was, but it was also the sort of the creator to consumer ratio is 1 to 99. Or actually it's worse than that. And so when somebody would say European city, they wouldn't, and so we actually had to iterate. We had to generate sort of an analysis of what the user said and analyze whether it was creative enough to create a 3D rendered version of what they were imagining, and then to get some nuances. So we had to have a dialogue with the user to kind of drive them. So tell me more about the European city. Is it in a particular country? And then they would say, yeah, and they're do you have a specific city in mind? And then what do you see in the city? Are there cars? Are there people? We have to prompt them. So I think it's ironic that we ended up prompt engineering the user to provide the creative input into the system, right? So I think that these sort of creative flows, whether it's data visualization or creative content, I think is super important to be able to present that in XR. So.
Shifting sides a little bit, Terry, you mentioned the cost basis element,
right?
The shifting from CapEx to OpEx,
right?
And I also touched on that without using those words. Actually, in the corporate example, instead of having this big thing that the data scientists are doing that was a big CapEx spend, moving to OpEx. And so, can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, right now when we budget a project, a large chunk of the budget is allocated to content creation for XR, right? I mean, the programming tends to be important, but relative cost is much higher on content. and it tends to be the sort of immutable part of the project, right? You don't tend to redo the models and redo the audio and all of that. So then it's hard to build replayability around that experience, and there's other constraints. In our project, since almost all of the content creation was done on the fly, we had to sit and analyze, what's the most performant, what gives us the better quality, and what's the cost model. For example, I did not include the face of Albert Einstein was not animating to speak, lip synced to the audio of the voice of Albert Einstein, because the cost was like $1 per minute to use the tools that were available that were qualitatively good enough. And so we had to sit and sort of look at all the different services we use, whether it was Blockade Labs or 11 Labs or Stable Diffusion or whatever, and analyze the cost and then figure out, like, per session, what's it going to cost us to operate this? Do I have budget? And so, like, we actually intentionally, didn't widely distribute the APK for the project internally because I didn't have budget to pay for, 10,000 people running the project as many times as they felt like it. But I think there's also an opportunity here. So almost none of the Gen AI services do cost modeling. They, if you're trying to build a project that's going to lean into them, regularly using them, it's all after the fact. Gee, what was my AWS bill? How much do I owe OpenAI this month?
Whoa!
There's people flex now on Twitter with what their OpenAI bill was last month. Look at me chowing down AI services. But I think this is an important part because while we shift from CapEx to OpEx, we also have to make sure that are we really manifesting a cost-effective result in exchange for all of the wins we get with dynamic, fluid, replayable, personalized, contextualized XR experiences.
Well, and on the flip side of that, I actually was speaking to a consumer products company last week where they said that, yes, we have corporate GenXR.
Yes.
AI. No, oh my God. It's mixed in my brain forever.
Yeah.
Gen AI. However, we are limited to only 10 queries in my team per day across the whole team because of the cost factor. And so I'm like, wow, you might as well not have it. She's like, that's right. I said, does that keep you from using it? She says, yes, it does. So the cost, and another thing, at Nokia, based in Finland, sustainability is a huge importance. The computer footprint in terms of sustainability and the energy consumption. That's another thing that we're actually really, really focused on and trying to understand how you have that balance of the magic powers of generative AI plus the real world footprint of it.
Yeah, and unless you're building multi-user applications, typically most XR projects are sort of all running on device, no network connectivity required because you've already downloaded, the application, and that's going to be completely different. The way you design an XR application that utilizes Gen AI services, you are always connected, and you have to be able to, on the fly, determine that you still are connected and that you have enough bandwidth, and maybe even have to do adaptation. And some of the services like 11 Labs, for example, will let you dial in like how you want to stream the audio. Do you want a low latency stream? Do you want to go for a higher quality? And you can even do a dynamic manipulation of the streams based on how your network connectivity fluctuates as the user's using the application. So you don't have to be a network engineer, but you do have to sort of think now about the connectivity and the compute being sort of hybrid between the device and the cloud.
And just the same way that none of any of this works without electricity. Also, none of this works without connectivity, which is why you've got two people from the telco world sitting up here and talking about this topic. Yeah. But would it make sense to throw it open to the audience at this point?
We have 7 minutes, so
yeah. So
some questions.
Is there a microphone? Oh, we caught you off guard. Okay, there you go. Yay! Okay,
surprise.
Gentleman right here. Oh, there's a gentleman right there.
And then the gentleman in the front.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Hi. Thanks very much. Amazing stuff here. I guess I'm thinking about when it comes to training customized AIs, right? You talked about you don't want to take the ones based on everything everywhere all at once because they hallucinate and they're not specific, right?
Yep.
So suppose I'm thinking about making a chatbot based on my UX design portfolio, right? To greet people on my site. How does that differ compared to an author making one for their book, or a company making one for their data, or the Wellington, New Zealand example? How do those kind of differ substantially from each other? And what would be for the first steps for somebody interested in exploring that kind of thing?
There's there's kind of 3 levels of how, and again, speaking from the corporate point of view and wanting to protect your data, there's 3 levels of integration. One is you can just use ChatGPT and see what you get, and that's where you're completely open to the hallucinations. Another thing to consider is that because Gen AI, yeah, I said it right, it's actually looking at this vast lake of data. The answers that you get back from that are actually going to be average answers. And so you're not going to get excellence. You're going to get good, workman-like results, but you're not going to get excellence. So then the next level is to actually then use a RAG, retrieval augmented generation, where you work with whatever platform. As I said, we at Nokia, we're using OpenAI. And that's where you feed your data into it, but it's still their structure. And that way you can ring fence it a lot more and actually, and that might be where you're going with the kind of the blog and the stuff. So you can ring fence their structure around your data. So that's probably a good level for you. But then the third level, the really deep level, is to actually work with the provider to create a Gen AI that is structured specifically for you and your industry's use. And that's where you're not using their OpenAI structure, just to use them as an example, but actually recreating a new structure that really suits telco. And so, however, there's a big problem with that because right now at least, it's really hard to know which partner to choose because there's still kind of sorting out, who's going to get sued by the New York Times next or whatever. Yeah. And it's really hard to predict which of the Gen AI companies out there is still going to be functioning in 5 years the same way they're functioning today. And it's just kind of the uncertainty here at the beginning of the whole thing. Yep. So again, we at Nokia, we've taken that middle level. We can see that if we built a telco-specific Gen AI thing for us, we would get a huge, much, much more utility out of it, but we're holding off on that for a couple of years.
Yeah, I think the personalized GPDs that you can now build that got released earlier this year goes a long way.
Oh, yeah, of course.
I've been creating sort of an AMA version of me as a GPD. So you want to ask questions about XR devices, whatever, it's available. And in it, I've been starting to load up data sets that I have that information about devices or just facts. And so then it becomes a bit of a me kind of persona that doesn't have, I don't have to worry about New York Times data being in there because it's my data, right?
And you're not as creepy as Edgar Allan Poe, are you?
No, I'm not
okay,
trying
good.
to be. No. So I think you can get a long way there. And it's a little trickier still when you're working with design because it's different language model processing versus working with illustration, layout, and aesthetic stuff. So we're still early days there. But one other aspect is that there's a personal memory system, and so you can kind of start to build a channel between the user and you and your representation of you that can have some memory associated with it. So they can come back and have a later conversation, and the context of the prior conversations are relevant. Oh, that's super important improvement that's happened this year.
Yeah, and also I was trying to put my book into a chatbot in my personal page, and I asked some of my friends. My friend is building a chatbot and for hotels. And then I asked him, why not just use ChatGPT? Why someone need a personalized and customized chatbot? And he mentioned that, okay, so if someone want to book a hotel, and different hotel has different time and rooms, and you don't want that ChatGPT to go all the hotels and find a very average things not tailored to your hotel. Yeah. So you want to put your personalized data. And same as, for example, right now I'm using Convey, CONVAI. I'm not advertising for that, but it's free to start. So I use that, and that integrates Ready Player Me as avatar, 11 Lab as voice, and OpenAI as the brand. But inside, if you go to their website, I'm not advertising, but it's really easy to use. You can upload your entire script. So I can pretty much upload all the Edgar Allan Poe's story inside that customization. So when the avatar start talking, it will have a first-person view instead of online, whatever grab and third point of view. So it has more niche. And also that AI has an emotion thing for your character. you want like a different types of emotion. So I drag like a very depressed, sad, like I drag like a very deep, like a human. So you can do that, and also you can put your customized like avatar as long as you have 2 animation default in, and you can do it. So, but I would say the development still has a lot of gap. But I would say now it will be better and better after probably 3 months. Every 1 month or 1 week, it will get huge improvement.
Yeah, I mean, just to the point of improvement, and we'll let one more question go maybe, is I had, just in the last 2 months, intended to update that application, and there was real-time music generation that wasn't available through API that came to market, 3 different options there. It's very competitive right now. So there's going to be an acceleration of new media types, video and music in particular, and others that will come to the table very quickly. What I'm really excited about is the idea that spatial affordance can start to be put into place, so we can start taking 2D applications and reimagining them as 3D spatial experiences in XR. So sort of enablement of production is going to be a big part of it. Yeah. So we have time for one question, or? Yeah. This gentleman had his hand up.
Yeah.
It just went 0.
It just went to 0. So make it fast. We'll answer fast.
Which one, right here?
Yeah, the gentleman in the front there. Yeah.
Sorry, he was good before. Yeah.
Hello. Okay. So kind of building off of that earlier discussion on like having the AI maybe take some more initiative. I was wondering your guys' thoughts on AI becoming more proficient enough to make autonomous decisions, and like, you know, like, for example, tailoring, like having AI teachers that can like tailor curriculums for individual students or something like that.
Yeah, AI is getting better and better. So for me, when I prepare curriculum, I usually just put like my goal, and but you still need somebody who know what you want. You still need to have a goal, and you need to be the quality control, because sometimes AI will generate a lot of gibberish. So yeah, we as a human, we still need to kind of do the quality control. And just like Leslie previous mentioned, that AI, the more we use AI will going down, and the outcome will getting bad and bad, worse and worse. So yeah, just like you mentioned that. So the outcome. So it just help us to quickly map out what's the average answer.
Yeah.
As for us, we still need to implement our magic on top of it.
Yeah, I mean, to the point of being proactive. So, you know, when anomalies in data sets can be easily flagged. And so then if you've given it some guidance about, I would like to be notified when you see something odd, then that can be where you can give some guardrails to an AI to be proactive in triggering, you know, warnings. And then also, like, in a context of human safety, it can just be automatic, because you can lay out constructive guidelines for human safety in a real world context, and then, you know, enable the, you know, stop, there's a car coming in, or stop, you know, you're about to step into a hole, or, you know, whatever. So I think there's like a lot of opportunity there to really focus on the human experience, leveraging AI as a proactive agent of safety or notification or anomaly recognition or whatever inside the environments.
Yeah, but the question of autonomy, it's really one of testing and trust.
Yeah.
And the problem with testing is, because generative AI, the result is slightly different every time. You can never test your way to 100% certainty. So, you know, you just kind of, I don't know, how serious is it? You know, it's we're all kind of blindfolded, feeling in the forest right now, and you know. Slowly the blindfold will come off, the light will shine through the trees, and we'll know more. But yeah, right now I wouldn't do it.
We're out of time, so thanks everybody for staying.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
Yeah.